Thank you very much, Egon, for this kind introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here at Tsinghua University. I know that this is a very distinguished university, and it is my first visit in Beijing, and it is a true pleasure to be here. So what I will do today is to tell you a little bit about the Nobel Foundation, both its history and its vision and plans for the future. And as Yegong told you, I was recently elected the chair of the board of the Nobel Foundation. So I have spent the last year learning a lot about the organization. So the creation of the Nobel Foundation is due to Alfred Nobel. He was born in 1833 in Sweden by Swedish parents. But he actually grew up in St. Petersburg in Russia, where his family moved. He received a very thorough education and spoke 5 languages at the age of 17. He was a chemist, but also an inventor, an engineer, an entrepreneur, and certainly very much a businessman. And he's mostly famous for inventing the dynamite. And in addition, he had 355 patents, so he was a very active person. He was also a true cosmopolitan, because not only did he was born in Sweden and grew up in Russia, he lived most of his life in Paris, in France, and then he died actually in Italy, in San Remo. When he died, he had created a multinational industrial empire of 90 companies in 20 different countries. And he was fairly wealthy at the time when he died. And he, in his will, which he wrote in 1895, 1 year before he died, he, on one page, gave away almost all of his fortune to this foundation, which has then the ability to award prizes to those who shall have conferred the greatest benefit on mankind in the fields of physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, literature and peace. And he was also very precise when it came to who should have the responsibility of selecting the prize winners. So in the case of the Physics and Chemistry Prize, this is the responsibility of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. More recently, there is another prize in economy, which is formally the Swedish Central Bank's prize in the honor of the memory of Alfred Nobel. This was 1968 when they had their 300-year anniversary that they made this donation. And this is also the responsibility of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. It's not a true Nobel Prize, but it is often also considered to be similar. The Physiology or Medicine Prize is in the hands of the Nobel Assembly of the Karolinska Institute, which is Stockholm University, or it's a university located in Stockholm, focusing entirely on medical science. And the Literature Prize is in the hands of the Swedish Academy, and the Peace Prize in the hands of the Norwegian Nobel Committee. You may ask why a Norwegian body was mentioned in his will, but you should remember that at 1895 Sweden and Norway was forming a union, so maybe Alfred Nobel felt that it was reasonable to distribute the responsibility for his prizes in both these countries. So the Nobel Prizes has received quite a lot of recognition and are considered prestigious. And the Encyclopedia Britannica refers to the Nobel Prizes as the most prestigious award given for intellectual achievements. So why has that happened? I think there are 3 elements in the reasons why the Nobel Prize has gained such a reputation. The first is that it was the first truly international prize. And if we look now on who has got the Nobel Prizes, they are more than 800 now. They are located in Western Europe, in North America, that dominates, for sure. But there are also prize winners in South America, Africa, Middle East, the Eastern Europe and Russia, southeastern China, and Australia. So there are prize winners all over. When Alfred Nobel stated this in his will, he said, "It is my express wish that in awarding the prizes, no consideration be given to the nationality of the candidates, but that the most worthy shall receive the prize, whether he be Scandinavian or not." This was criticized a lot at that time. In the end of the 1800s, Sweden and most other countries was plagued by xenophobia and nationalism, and many felt that it was not a good idea to award so much money to foreigners. Why not keep it to Swedish people? But the fact that Alfred Nobel was so clear on this particular aspect of his prize, I think is one of the major reasons behind its prestige. The second is, of course, the size of the money. It's a substantial amount of money. In 1901, which was the first year Nobel Prize was awarded, the prize sum corresponding to 20 years of salary of a Swedish professor. Due to restrictions in how the funds could be managed, the value went down for the coming 50-60 years. But then they managed to change the rules, so now the fund is investing in a more traditional way, so the growth of the fund has now led to the restorement of the price level. And this is approximately the size of the price also now. The third reason is that the prize awarding institutes are completely independent and they work on their own, and they put a lot of work into finding the most appropriate winner, and they devote a lot of time to this. Those who sit on these committees devote a lot of effort into their tasks, and they try to be very thorough and investigate really who was the true inventor, who was the first who came up with a specific idea, and this is the person that should be awarded the Nobel Prize. Sometimes someone comes in a little bit later and then dominates the field, and in the general public and the scientific community, that person might be seen as sort of the worthy prize winner. But according to the Nobel rules, the idea is to try to find the one who was really first with a new idea. So, up until now, the Nobel Prize has not had many other similar-sized prizes, so the competition hasn't been so fierce. But that has dramatically changed the last 3-4 years. Now there are several other international prizes in similar fields as those covered by the Nobel Prizes. For instance, the Breakthrough Awards in life science, based in America by those people who have become very rich on information technology, and also the Fundamental Physics Award, also by the same funders. Their prizes are twice the size and more than that compared to the Nobel Prize. And I think this is going to make competition for the Nobel Prize, and we have to work very hard in order to retain the prestige as the leading scientific award. Of course, one has to look positively on the fact that people want to support science and they want to put money to reward scientific breakthroughs and scientific discoveries. So I'm personally happy that these new prizes has been installed. But for us in the Nobel sphere, of course, it means that we have to work even harder. I'd like to mention a few of the Nobel Prize winners just to exemplify the kind of persons that has received the award. This is, as you all see, Albert Einstein. He got the Nobel Prize in 1921 for the discovery of the law of the photoelectric effect. You probably know that Albert Einstein made a number of other discoveries, maybe even more important, like the theory of general and specific relativity, which he had presented by this time. However, at that time, people weren't really sure that this was true, that it was correct, his relativity theories. So the award committee were were rather conservative. The award committees tend to be that. Didn't dare to give him the prize for that, but they gave it to him for the photoelectric effect, which is also certainly extremely important. So this is the basis for why when we take a photo with a digital camera, the light is sort of transferred to electricity, which can be stored. So it's certainly an important thing. And as you know, he made several other very important findings on the Brownian motion, as well as the equivalence between energy and matter. E equals m times c in square, where E is energy and m is mass and c is the velocity of light. Another important prize was the last one in physics, given to Francois Englert and Peter Higgs for the prediction of the Higgs particle, or maybe we should call it the Englert-Higgs particle. So this is a central unit in the standard model for particle physics, which tells us that everything consists of small particles. And this Higgs particle is what gives it its mass. This is why the electrons and the quarks in us are not like photons that would travel with the speed of light and without having any mass. They made their discovery 50 years ago, and you may ask yourself why wait so long to award them the Nobel Prize, which they so dearly deserve. Well, they were waiting for experimental verification of their theory, and that came about 2 years ago, 2012, in CERN in Geneva, in Switzerland. They made experiments proving the existence of the Higgs particle. This was a major effort involving a lot of money and 5,000 scientists or so. Another important prize was given to Alexander Fleming, who got the 1945 Nobel Prize, which he shared with two other people who had also contributed, Florey and Chain. And he got the prize for discovery of penicillin, a major breakthrough in our ability to combat bacterial infections. So Sir Alexander Fleming was himself a bacteriologist, and he was working on how to treat infections with bacteria. He went on holiday, according to the story, and when he came back, he saw that some of his bacterial plates had been contaminated. Mold had grown into the bacterial cultures. And then he observed that around the mold, bacteria couldn't grow. And he realized that the mold produced a substance that either killed bacteria or at least prevented them from growth. So he isolated the mold, and later on the substance that has this effect, which is penicillin. And this is certainly one of the most important breakthroughs in medicine during the last 100 years. And before that, there was not much medicine. So another famous prize is, of course, the double helix, given to Watson and Crick, and to Maurice Wilkins, who was not on the picture. During the 40s, it became clear that inheritance is not linked to proteins, which one was thought before, because they are the only complicated molecules in us, but rather to DNA, which is a rather boring and not so sophisticated molecule. And Crick, Watson, and Wilkins then understood that if we can solve the structure of DNA, maybe we can understand how genetic information can be transferred from one cell to its daughter cells. So using crystal structure, or DNA crystals that was accomplished by Rosalind Franklin, who unfortunately died shortly after and therefore could not get a Nobel Prize. They were able to figure out that the DNA is a double helix with these 4 bases facing inwards in the middle of the helix, and due to the specific complementation that there is, and you all know about, there is now a mechanism for how genetic information can be copied and inherited between cells and between generations. This is also an interesting twist because 2 out of the 3 who got the Nobel Prize for these very biological questions are physicists. And maybe the reason was because Erwin Schrödinger, another very important physicist who also got a Nobel Prize in physics, he gave a series of lectures during the 40s in which he claimed that knowledge and methods from physics could help to solve and understand problems in biology. And I think they were inspired by that, and then the rest is history. Another interesting prize came just a few years ago, 2010, to Andrei Geim and Konstantin Novoselov, and they got a prize from their work on graphene, which is a very thin carbon structure, almost two-dimensional. And they isolated graphene using very innovative and very simple methods, using ordinary Scotch tape. They put a piece of graphene on, and then by doing repetitive gluing together and tearing apart, they could isolate thinner and thinner flakes of this graphite piece. And in the end, they had only single-layer carbon structures. That is what we know now as graphene, and they could study its properties. Turns out that this molecule has very interesting properties, very strong, and it also has electric properties, which makes it very useful in various electronics applications. And this is now worked on in many, many companies and many laboratories in the world. Interestingly, these two inventors, Geim and Novoselov, are also the only Nobel Prize winners who also has got the Ig Nobel Prize. I don't know whether you've heard of it, but there is a group at Harvard University in Boston who gives out prizes in the same fields as Nobel, and they announce their prize winners slightly before the Nobel Prize winners. And they picked then science which is sort of a very strange nature, things that you would laugh about when you hear about it first. But then you may think a little bit later that might not have been so silly after all. And Novoselov and Geim got it because out of all their very innovative ideas, at some point they managed to get a frog to levitate in an electromagnetic field, and this impressed the Ig Nobel committee, and they thought that this was the most stupid thing one could ever try to do, and they got the prize. It shows us that true innovation, people are innovative and dare to think in new ways, have a good chance to get a Nobel Prize. The last example is the prize 2012, which went to Shinya Yamanaka and John Gurdon for their discovery of reprogramming of cells. So what John Gurdon did 50 years ago was to take frog egg, he worked with frog as this model organism, and removed the nuclei and put in nuclei from a skin cell in a frog. And then he could show that this new egg with all its DNA from the skin cell still could make a completely good frog. So telling us in this very ingenious experiment that all genetic information needed to make all cells of the body is present on a highly specialized cell. He had to wait 50 years for his prize, so I think this tells us also that a very important thing if you want to get the Nobel Prize is to stay alive. And then Yamanaka, fairly recently, only 2006, managed to reprogram cells that were specialized by providing a cocktail of transcription factors. He could make them more immature, pluripotent, and then they now can be differentiated into new types of cells. So these techniques provides enormous opportunities for regenerative medicine when we need to make new cells of a certain kind in order to repair tissues. And now it's potentially possible to take cells from ourselves and then reprogram them to make heart myofibroblasts or whatever we need. So the Nobel Prize is awarded in the in the award ceremony on December 10 always, because this was the day Alfred Nobel died. So the Nobel Prize ceremony is always on this day. And it is held in the Stockholm Concert Hall, and you can see that there is a lot of people there. The royal family is there, and also representatives of the scientific community and the Swedish government and so forth. There is also beautiful flower arrangements here in this room as well as in the party afterwards, and these flowers come from the city of San Remo as a gift, as an acknowledgement, because that's where Alfred Nobel died. So in the evening then there is a big party, and 1,300 or so in the City Hall of Stockholm. You may recognize me here. And this party contains good food, nice wines, speaks, presentations from the Nobel laureates, and also entertainment during the dinner. And afterwards there is dancing on the second floor. At the same time in Oslo, there is similar activities to hand out the Peace Prize, and they also have a party in the evening. So a little bit about the institutions that award the prizes. So the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has the responsibility for the prize in physics and in chemistry and economy, as I told you already. So the Academy consists of 440 Swedish and 175 foreign members. And the responsibility for these prizes is with the classes in physics, chemistry, and economy. They are very careful, as I mentioned already, in how they find the awardees. So what the first step is to send out nominations to many professors in Sweden, in Europe, and in the rest of the world, and ask for proposals. And they send out several thousands. And then they receive back several hundreds. And they are then, as of 1st of February, so the Nobel Prize for this year, which will be handed out December 10 this year, the nominations was received 1st of February. So now the committees, and each prize has a committee of 5 to 8 people who is doing the primary work. They go through the nominations and they end up with a smaller number which they feel are potentially appropriate for the prize. Then they go through them more carefully and they read about what they have done, and then they meet again later on during the spring and successively then end up with a small number of candidates. These are then sent out to experts in the world for their opinions over the summer, and then in the end of the summer they have their final discussions, and in early October the final decision is made. And the prizes are always nowadays awarded in 1 week. So on Monday, medicine or physiology, on Tuesday, physics, on Wednesday, chemistry, Thursday, literature, and Friday, peace, and the following Monday, then economy. And the formal decision in the Royal Academy of Sciences is done then in the morning. And then as soon as that has the proposal presented by the small committee has been either accepted or not by the large assembly. If it is accepted, then the decision is taken to the secretary of the academy, who's then calling those who have got the prize. This is around 11 o'clock Swedish time. So if an American gets a call from the Nobel Foundation telling him or her that he or her has got the Nobel Prize, it's 5 o'clock in the morning if it's on the East Coast, and 2 o'clock in the morning if it's on the West Coast. When a Chinese person gets the prize, it will be more decent. It will be maybe 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So, in the case of the prize in medicine or physiology, this is in the hands of the Karolinska Institute, and this is the person who has presented this the last years, and this is also in the front of journalists from Sweden and from abroad. This is the house in the old town of Sweden where the Swedish Academy had have their meetings. These are 18 members that are elected until they die, and then they elect someone else, and they handle the literature prize. And in Norway, it's the members appointed by the Norwegian Parliament who are entrusted with the selection and awarding the Peace Prize. And this is then announced on the Friday in the same week. So behind all this, what keeps it all together is the Nobel Foundation. This was not mentioned specifically in the will, but it is an institution that was established in 1900. And the task is to manage the assets left by Alfred Nobel and to safeguard the economic base and guarantee the independence of the Nobel Prize awarding institutions, and also to have an overall responsibility for their work and that it is done in a proper way, and also to safeguard and maintain intellectual property rights. So since now the Nobel activities has branched out quite a lot, a number of daughter companies has been formed under the Nobel Foundation. And one such is the Nobel Media, which is present in Stockholm and London. They has the role to manage and develop media rights connected with the Nobel Prize. And it aims to reach a global audience via digital and broadcast media and events. And it produces, manages and maintains the Nobel Prize.org, which is the website for the Nobel Foundation. And they operate independently in a way in terms of their budget. So they make money on the activities that they have in order to pay for their own costs. Another company is the Nobel Museum, which is present in Stockholm. And this is a museum where there is information and research activities, and it illustrates the century of creativity through the Nobel Prizes and produce traveling exhibitions for large audience around the world. And the focus here is on the discoveries that the Nobel Prize winners made, and the Nobel Prize winners themselves and their lives and their missions and so forth. It's a nice museum. And in Norway there are similar companies. The one is the Nobel Peace Center. It's a museum centered on the Peace Prize. And there is another Nobel Peace Prize Research and Information, which is the counterpart to the Nobel Media in Norway. They organize the Nobel Peace Prize concert in Oslo on December 11 every year. And they also run research on international relations, peace and conflict, and supports other activities that involve spreading information about the Nobel Peace Prize. So, the last thing I'd like to discuss and mention here is the new development. So, this is the center of Stockholm, as you can see. The Nobel Foundation has got as a gift from the Stockholm city this piece of land, which is the only remaining piece of land in central Stockholm, to build a house that will be the center of the Nobel activities in the future. You see here, this is the castle of Stockholm, and this is the Parliament of Stockholm. So this is really a very nice location in the very middle of Stockholm, surrounded by water. Stockholm is a city with a lot of water. So it's beautiful and it's very nice. But a house costs money, and the Nobel Foundation is not very rich, so we cannot really use the Alfred Nobel's money on this ambitious project. It has to come from elsewhere. Fortunately, we have received donations from the Wallenberg Foundation and from the Stefan Persson Foundation in Sweden, that are big foundations created by rich Swedes who want to donate money for research. We still need 1/3 of the money, but there are ongoing activities to secure that too. So competition amongst architects has now been started, and it's in the final phase. There are 3 remaining proposals, and this is one of them. It doesn't say that this is the one that will win, but this is a sort of a building next to a museum on this peninsula that may then become the center of the activities in Sweden. So of course, all the Nobel events, they circle around the laureates that has received the prize. There are now 851 who has got the prize. In addition, 25 organizations have also been awarded the Nobel Prize. So this is for peace. For the scientific prizes, so far no organization has got the prize, only individuals. And the activities in this house that I just mentioned will circle around these people and their discoveries. And it will house the Nobel Museum in Stockholm. As an example of these outreach activities that has now started recently is the Nobel Week Dialogue. First time this was held was 2012 in Stockholm, and the theme then was the genetic revolution. So then a number of Nobel laureates came together with Swedish scientists and politicians and decision makers and the representatives of various parts of the society to discuss the implications of this very dramatic change that has occurred when it comes to genetic information. And it is really a revolution. So this was a very well-received event, and it was attended by a lot of people. Last year, in 2013, a similar event was held in Gothenburg, and the theme here was energy. As you know, this is one of the most important questions for the future of mankind, how we can produce energy in an environmentally friendly way. And here you can see Mario Molina, who is looking at some young people doing experiments at this occasion. Also very well attended and well received. And I think one of the key things in the mission of the Nobel Prizes is to encourage young people to get interested in science, enter research, and get inspired by the people who has done very well in science before them. And here is then a selfie with Michael Levitt, who got the last Nobel Prize in chemistry, and two young students. And whether they like it or not, Nobel laureates become ambassadors for science, and they are often invited to all kinds of events, and they often show up and present science in an interesting fashion and inspire young people. So this is Barry Marshall, who got the prize in 2005 in physiology or medicine because of his work on Helicobacter pylori, and it's linked to ulcers in the stomach. And he visited here in Beijing some time ago, and this is a picture from that event. So, finally, Alfred Nobel's vision was that Nobel Prizes should be awarded to those who have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind, to those who contribute to our society, to those who make a difference, and to those who strive to make the world a better place to live in. So, ideas can change the world. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.